God bless you. Good morning. Welcome ready for impeachment. Joining us now, I'm a day behind schedule, but ever faithful he is to not only the show, but to our people and the cause especially. The president and CEO of the oldest and the boldest, the most cussed and the most discussed civil rights organization in America, Derrick Johnson. Derrick, good morning. God bless you, brother.
Good morning, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm good. Want to get your reaction first and foremost to the news of Alton Sterling.
You know, it's a continuing story of sadness that in this country, the life of a black man is still measured the same way it was measured with Dred Scott. It seems that law enforcement truly believe and operate in too many countries that we have no rights that law enforcement is bound to uphold. These officers must be held accountable. Procedures in which law enforcement across the country respond to issues dealing with African Americans. More importantly, if you look at why the police was going out and searching in this community, they were looking for someone who was breaking into cars, if I understand it. No one's life was in danger, but they were responding with the ultimate force, which resulted in this brother being killed in his backyard.
You're right.
Hello?
Yeah, you're right. No, I'm with you. Can you hear me?
It just is that's one thing if someone's life was in danger.
Mm-hmm.
No one's life was in danger based on reports I heard. And, they had everything from helicopters to police force looking for someone breaking into cars.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You have the Stephen Clark case in Sacramento. You have the Alton Sterling case in Baton Rouge, where there was the declination of prosecute. Derrick, as an attorney, I mean, can you see any justification for them not charging those officers in Baton Rouge?
None.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There is, this grand jury process in many cases is not even warranted. You don't need a grand jury to bring charges in most states.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes they use the grand jury process as a shield to go after people unjustifiably and not prosecute people who should be prosecuted.
Yeah. You're right. 866-99-SIRIUS, 866-997-4748. So we have both of those cases. In the case of Alton Sterling, is there any recourse in any other move or play that the NAACP might have legally?
But we don't have standing in court because these crimes are considered crimes against the state. So only the state can bring charges. The state, the public good. And so only federal charges can be brought or state charges. Mm-hmm. Individuals can only bring civil claims, and you have to be an injured party.
Yeah. So
NAACP, we don't have standing to bring charges. Only thing we can do is what young people have been doing and bringing pressure, social, political pressure, to make sure that all citizens are afforded equal protection under the law. And we're having just serious breakdowns in the application of the law, whether it's allowing a foreign government to rig our elections or police officers being aggressive in how they handle our community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. You're right about that. As a matter of fact, on we know the NAACP had a very, very strong presence on Saturday, especially the youth on Saturday, with regards to the March for Our Lives, and the NAACP fully endorsed that effort. Correct?
Yeah, we endorsed it not simply because of the massacres alone. It's because of the everyday reality in our community.
Right. Right.
Mark, I grew up in Detroit. In the 80s, I've watched the crack epidemic take hold in our community. We talk about our neighborhood pre-crack and post-crack. We remember what it was prior to the flood of the drugs in our community and after. And what we've seen is guns. This is flooded in our community.
Yes. Yes.
We don't manufacture guns in our neighborhoods. We don't manufacture guns anywhere that I'm aware of. And it was the lack of gun control, gun laws that allow for the flow of gun violence.
Right.
And so that's why we supported that march, because there has to be, you look at Australia. Australia had a massacre in, I believe, 94 or 96. One time, they radically changed their laws. They have not had a mass shooting since.
A retired Justice, John Paul Stevens, has called for a repeal of the Second Amendment. Has the NAACP, I don't know that it has, but I'm just asking, has the NAACP taken a look at that, Derrick, or considered that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a radical statement for a Supreme Court justice to begin to float the concept that we must change our Constitution. That's a radical departure. I mean, we are at a level where people of that stature in our legal system saying something must be done, and if these companies and this organization is using the Second Amendment to our Constitution as justification, let's get rid of it. Let's remove any question of the legitimacy of their claim. Well, truth be told, we can do it without removing the Second Amendment. I'm always worried when we start touching the Constitution, because when you open that up, you can touch other things as well.
I see.
Like citizenship.
And I want to talk about that too in a moment. But before we do, if you would indulge me, we talked before about Tiffany Lofton, the new and dynamic youth and college director, and Tiffany was actually on social media during the march, and in 1 minute, this has gotten almost 3 million views,
and it's still going. She's a powerhouse.
And we saw the young people demonstrating for the first time, coming together with white kids shot inside schools, black kids shot in the streets. And in 1 minute, this has gotten almost 3 million views. In 1 minute, Tiffany Lofton summed up how all of these things come together, including police shootings. And I really want you all to hear this. So bring me up, if you would, Andrew. This is Tiffany Lofton.
March for Our Lives on March 24, 2018. We're here for 3 important reasons. Number 1, what they will not do is ignore black voices. Number 2, what they will make sure to do is include our agenda in the agenda for gun prevention reform. When we talk about legislative issues and solutions for gun violence, it has to include the intersections of black violence. That means guns, that means gangs, that means schools, that means teachers, that means police brutality, that means state violence. It has to include all of that stuff if we're going to be able to do this together. This is not just about white people in school shootings in the classroom. They kill us in churches. They kill us on the streets. They kill us in the car. They kill us when we're traveling. And they kill us in our classrooms. This is about all the young black people that you look at behind you. That's what this is about. It's not about none of this extra stuff with the concert. That's great. We're here to organize, represent, and show power. And the third thing that we're here to do is make sure we have a great time. We came from all across the entire country to be here for this specific moment because I want my people to feel empowered. And I want them to go back to the field and to know that when they get back to the local organizing, that's where it matters.
Tiffany Lofton at the March for Our Lives, almost 3 million views, thousands of retweets. Now, it used to be, Derrick, in the old days when we would come along, the young people couldn't riff like that without the permission of the president and the CEO. You give her permission to do that, brother, or what?
Listen, what I did was recruit a young, talented sister who understands her voice, she understands her power, and I say, go do it. We have to empower our young people. And Tiffany is a great example. At 28 years old, a young lady who grew up in L.A. in the midst of all the chaos, but had the wherewithal and the community support to matriculate to where she is now. You don't harness that voice. You allow that voice to be heard because she is speaking the truth of the millennials.
Yeah.
I mean, she's powerful. And I've watched her over the last 5 years grow and develop and mature. And, I am proud that she is who she is. So, it's not a permission thing for me. I didn't have to get permission. I was given space. Our goal is to give her space.
Yes, that's right. No, I know, brother. I'm just teasing. Derrick Johnson, President, CEO of the NAACP. Derrick, you mentioned citizenship. Let's deal with that. Trump wants to put citizenship on the census. What's the NAACP's reaction to that?
It's ironic, and I'm announcing it on your show. We are filing a lawsuit against the Trump administration today, dealing with the census. We have two things he's doing to try to suffocate an accurate count. The first thing they're doing is they're underfunding the Census Bureau, so there would not be enough enumerators in our communities making sure there's an accurate count. And that's the basis of our lawsuit. And we're filing this lawsuit on behalf of Prince George County, Maryland. Because we know that if there are not enough enumerators, Prince George County, Maryland will suffer through another undercount, which would rob that county of the resources needed to function. See, the census count is not about how many people are in a vacuum. That count determines the flow of federal funds for roads, bridges, education, you name it. And if you have an undercount in certain areas and an overcount in other areas, that means some areas will be represented with more resources than our communities. So that lawsuit is being filed today. And it's ironic that they made the announcement of the citizenship question on there because they're trying to create a chilling effect for Latinos and other communities to not fill it out at all.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening now is the South Africa effect. The community that's soon to be the minority, they are fighting at all costs to continue to rule as if they were the majority. And so they do it in ways in which they have aggressive policing, unbridled gun control, creating election systems where the will of the people are not heard, not counting accurately the true census of this country, making sure that the banking systems and the flow of revenue is not equitable so communities can't build economic power, suffocating the education system in a way in which our children cannot truly develop the critical thinking skills necessary to contribute to society and build community.
Mm-hmm.
We can go on and on and on, but this is the South African effect that we're seeing where the minority seek to put in place several devices and systems that will keep them in power.
So you're filing that lawsuit today?
It'll be filed today.
Okay.
And once filed, we will have a press conference. And so you are the first outlet that we're announcing it. But the media release will go out. The lawsuit will be filed. represent Prince George County, but what happens there will have an impact nationwide.
All right. Derrick Johnson with us, folks, President and CEO of the NAACP. A couple more things before we go. We lost Linda Brown. For those of you who don't know, Brown versus Board. Brown was a person. It was Linda Brown. It was a little girl in Topeka, Kansas, a 1954 Supreme Court decision which desegregated schools and pretty much took down, not pretty much, it did take down the Plessy decision of 1896. And the 1954 Brown decision opened the door for not only the desegregation of schools, which is a battle we're still fighting, but desegregation across the board. It was the NAACP, Legal Defense Fund attorneys, including Thurgood Marshall, that are
NAACP. There was no legal.
That's okay. That's what I meant to say. Right. That's what I was getting to. It wasn't the LDF yet. It was the NAACP. But yeah, Derrick, give us a little bit of that history and really the importance of the Brown decision and Linda Brown in terms of the NAACP's work at that time.
Well, you know, the beautiful thing about having critical thinking skills, you can see a problem and you work through a solution. And sometimes solutions are not, you don't do it with a home run. It's a systematic approach. Charles Hamilton Houston was a mastermind. He was a brother who the first graduate of Harvard Law School. He decided that what he learned in law school was not being adequately applied to our community. So he set on the course to teach at Howard Law School, to help establish Howard Law School, while at the same time use that platform as he worked for the NAACP to train young lawyers to dismantle the decision of Plessy versus Ferguson, where separate but equal became the law of the land. It was an oxymoron. It was nothing that could be truly achieved, particularly in the former Confederate South. And so he built out that strategy over time, and he recruited and trained Constant Baker Motley, Thurgood Marshall, and many other young lawyers who came out of Howard Law Schools and eventually other areas. And with that strategy, they built the cases plural, which led to Brown versus Board of Education with a series of victories. Charles Hamilton Houston became ill. He died in the mid-30s, and that set of lawyers continued the strategy. So it was a continuum. It wasn't based on an individual or personality or an ego. It was based on a long-term strategy to ensure that the laws of the land were applied equally to us. And as a result of that, a series of cases from across the country were all consolidated. The lead case, in fact, was the Briggs case out of South Carolina. But there was also a case in Kansas City, Missouri. Mm-hmm. And this beautiful young lady and her family became the lead named plaintiffs. That's where we get the Brown from. But once it got to the Supreme Court, they consolidated those 4 or 5 cases. The Supreme Court decided to make Brown the lead case because the other cases came from the South. And so they wanted to show that it wasn't not only in the South, there was alleviation on the pressure from the South. This was a national problem. There was segregation in Boston and New York, all across the country. And so Brown versus Board became the famous case that not only integrated public schools, but it overturned this doctrine of separate but equal.
We mourn the death and lift up the name of Linda Brown and her legacy in all of those cases as they were combined. And lastly, Derrick, there is a week from today, we will commemorate the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's martyrdom. All of us will be in Memphis. Folks, we'll be broadcasting live from Memphis most of next week. Dr. King had a very special relationship with the NAACP, didn't he?
I mean, that would have not been a Dr. King as we know it if Ruby Hurley and Nixon in Alabama had not been so aggressive in pushing the question of equity in Alabama, resulting in the state of Alabama banning the organization from the state. And Nixon came up with the strategy, along with Rosa Parks and many others, to begin to challenge how the bus systems were being operated, resulting in the boycott.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Eddie Nixon who was the architect and the strategist. But the unique thing about our community, we have to respect our institutions and hold them up, because Eddie Nixon was not only the branch president of the NAACP in Birmingham, he also was a poor reporter. Mm-hmm. And so as he put this strategy together, Afula Randolph was down there helping him put together the strategy. And when everything was said and done, they decided to use the new preacher in town, because Vernon Johns, who was one of their leaders, had been run out of town.
Right.
And so,
right.
and so, since Vernon Johns wasn't there, and he was a profound voice, leader, and courageous individual, they said, get this new guy. He's not going to be here long. It was Martin Luther King, ended up being the voice of that boycott, but he was such a profound speaker and an inspirational leader that we had a chance to be graced with his voice added to the civil rights movement as we know it.
Now, and that's right. So the NAACP was actually banned in Alabama at that time.
It was banned in Alabama, but Eddie Nixon was still operating as the boycott. Now, the boycott, they was still there. And Eddie Nixon was the architect of that boycott,
right,
and the courage behind it.
Yeah, no question about it.
Rosa Parks was the branch secretary,
yes,
and the youth advisor.
Yes. As a matter of fact, speaking of South Africa and banning organizations, I think we've come full circle. Folks, we'll all be in Memphis. Join us there at the National Civil Rights Museum and elsewhere. Derrick Johnson, President and CEO of the NAACP. Derrick, as always, my brother, we appreciate you and we thank you, okay?
Listen, I appreciate you like I do every week. You know, we need to take the pledge and vote.
That's right.
And text NAACP to 46409. Democracy hangs in the ballot. Our voice will make the difference.
Thank you, Derrick.
Thank you.
Enjoy your day. Folks, we'll be back. This is MIP.